right, well, welcome back to another one of our series on SVOG compliance and reporting matters. Last time you heard Matt Gard talk a lot about revenue recognition for the recipients who receive these federal funds. And he also alluded to the fact that there might be some strings attached. And so we're going to talk a lot more about that today. So we all know that the SVOG funds do come with some of those strings, namely around some complex compliance requirements, which may be very foreign to some nonprofit organizations. Let's talk a little bit about when an organization receiving SVOG funds is required to have an audit of their annual financial statements, as well as what we call in the industry a single audit. So Andrie, can you please walk us through these murky waters and hopefully bring some clarity to all these new audit requirements?
Yeah, for sure, Jeff. A good general rule of thumb I like to think about is for federal funds such as SVOG, if an organization expends $750,000 within their fiscal year, they're most likely subject to a single audit. The key word here is expend and not received. An important thing to note also is that if an organization receives additional federal funds, those counts together towards the $750,000 threshold. SVOG, not by itself, $750,000. Also, a good reminder is that there's some other COVID relief funding sources that might be subject to single audit as well. We know the Paycheck Protection Program loans are not subject to single audits, but on the other hand, programs such as economic injury disaster loans are considered federal financial assistance and would be included in calculating total federal funds expended. And then the second part of the question is, if you are subject to a single audit, are you required to have a financial statement audit as well if you are not already having one? And the answer is, it depends. As Jeff said, it's kind of murky, and we strongly advise talk to a professional and they will help you walk through it. But there's two parts to a single audit: the financial statement audit and also the compliance audit over the SVOG or other federal funding. The guidance said if you're a first-time federal grantee or only receive small allocations of other federal funding, you might only need a program-specific audit and not a full financial statement audit as it relates to the federal funding. Therefore, the SVOG part, which Allison is going to get to some of the process of that, you'll have to be hiring an independent auditor to test the compliance, your organization's internal controls, financial systems, and a record keeping. But the good news would be that you wouldn't need a full-fledged financial statement audit. On the other hand, if you receive multiple sources of federal funding, you will need a full single audit that would include the external financial statement audit.
Wow, great. Thank you, Andrie. I know that there's a lot of murky waters there, and I think you brought some clarity to the topic. I do have a quick follow-up question to that, and perhaps, Allison, you may be able to help me with this. So many organizations out there have very little experience prepping themselves for a single audit. This may be the first time they're seeing it. So what are some practical steps that they should take now to get out in front of the single audit so they're well prepared for the day that the auditors show up?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That's a great question. We do realize that a lot of these organizations don't even know what a single audit is, what they should do as far as preparation. So as part of our single audit and our single audit report, we disclose any instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported under governmental auditing standards. And we also report on internal controls over financial reporting. So one of the first things to think about in preparation for a single audit would be to make sure you have read any applicable award documents and you're familiar with these requirements of the grants, the award, including any reporting dates you might need to know, and what is considered an allowable cost or expense of the award. These expenses could include things such as payroll-related expenses or operational expenses like lease expenses, debt payoffs, or supplies, or anything like that. Another area to look at for preparation would be your internal controls. We also need to report on that. So you want to make sure you have internal controls in place related to these different granting requirements. So for example, if you're going to recognize expenses over payroll, you want to make sure that someone is reviewing and approving employees' time, and any of that pay that might be coded to the grant. For disbursements, you also want to ensure that there's proper cash disbursement controls in place where someone's also reviewing and approving the expenditures. It is also a best practice with these controls in place that us auditors would like to see would be the evidence of the review. So we definitely want to make sure somebody's signing off or dating, whether it's handwritten or through the system generated reports and audit trails, something like that, so we can ensure your controls are actually happening as you say they do. And then kind of the third area that I would look at in regards to preparation for an audit is you want to make sure you're tracking these expenditures. You want to make sure that you know exactly what you're going to be recognizing in revenue, whether it's through a spreadsheet, maybe you hit a specific code, something like that, because this will be something, one of the first things auditors will ask for is a listing of all these expenses that match basically what you're going to record as revenue. So those are kind of the three areas I would say would help as far as preparation for a single audit.
I love it. Thank you, Allison. That is awesome. And prepping for any audit sounds like a pretty daunting task, but I think the key is to take small steps, right? And talk to your professionals soon. Talk to your auditors early on to make sure that you're both on the same page. And I always like to say, how do you eat an elephant, right? Just one bite at a time. So thanks again, Allison. So let's turn to Matt Petroski as well. So Matt, how does the SVOG reporting period and the final reporting get closed out or wrapped up, if you will? Like, what do we know about that today? What do we know about the closeout process? Can you speak to us a little bit about that?
Well, we know a little bit, and I think this might be the area. Jeff, I know you said we will give some clarity. I'll give some maybes, which is this is all dependent upon some of the additional guidance that the SBA said that they were going to put out in early December of 2021. Obviously, we're well past that. But what I will talk about is what we know now, which is there's really going to be three phases to what they are referring to as the closeout phase, as opposed to the active grantee phase. So the first part begins with the grantee receiving a quote unquote begin closeout expense report action item in your portal. So if you receive that, then you know you're beginning the closeout phase. And it should include a due date for you. So basically, what are we doing in this phase? You're assembling the supporting documentation and really organizing all of your expenditures in the budget categories that you used. And then also potentially responding to any SBA questions that they may have. Then if the SVOG approves the expense report, we move on to phase two, which is the review of the closeout form SF425 to take a look at what has been provided, confirm that all the information is correct, and then again responding to any questions that they have. And then finally, the grant award closure, which is the last thing we need to worry about. We do need a little bit more information on this. So that is the piece, that final piece that completely closes everything out. And we should have additional guidance from the SBA hopefully soon. And then at that point, that should be it.
Thanks, Matt. So it sounds like what you're telling us is there's a lot more to come on that topic, and we will be sure to get more content out as soon as it is released by our friends in the government. So thank you, Matt, Andrie, and Allison. That was great. So stay tuned next time, where we're going to be releasing another segment in our SVOG compliance and reporting discussion, where we address some of the questions you may have around for-profit organizations and whether or not they also have to comply with these reporting requirements that Andrie and Allison and Matt just walked us through. So stay tuned for that next time.